Driver salaries are not included in the cost cap, which might be fortunate actually, because Daniel Ricciardo has been in the spotlight, hasn't he, because of his performances actually for quite a while now at McLaren. I think we've got a graphic to show us. Here it is. Let's not forget, 217 Grand Prix. He has won 8 of them. Alex, what do you think about Daniel?
He's definitely under pressure now, isn't he? And McLaren had a very change of tone this weekend, didn't they? Talking about the clauses in the contract that was specific, I think, or alluded to performance clauses. So both ways that was. I think Ricciardo is under pressure. I think he does need to find something quite seriously. It's coming to that part of the time of the year, isn't it, when these sort of conversations do start to happen. And Ricciardo, he did win a race last year, and he did improve towards the end of last year. But at the moment, he's quite a bit behind Lando Norris, and that's not so good for him.
You've watched him in most of those 16, 17 races. Alex, what is it, 217 races? What is it? Is there something wrong, or is it just that he's got Lando Norris as his teammate and we don't realise yet how good Lando is?
I mean, we know how good Lando is. I mean, you've been watching Lando for a long time as well. He's a bit like in the old Verstappen, Leclerc, George Russell, new generation, more complete driver. Ricciardo reminds me a bit like Jenson Button. Jenson Button, world champion, fantastic driver. But if the car ever fell out of his window a little bit, and you always used to talk about needing a very secure rear end, his pace could disappear. He could have great years, like when he was up against Hamilton and could beat him fair and square, or against Alonso. But he could have other years where he just kind of lost his way a bit. And I think that happens with Ricciardo as well. We saw it with the last year in Red Bull when Verstappen started getting the edge on him, and the car direction started going Verstappen's way. Ricciardo didn't have any answers, and you could see that. Okay, he'll never say this, but I think he left because it was getting a bit too hard. And now he's up against Lando Norris, and McLaren love Norris, and perhaps. And here's Ricciardo's crash in FP2 on on Thursday. So you can see Ricciardo's pushing, and he's under pressure now, and these mistakes are starting to come. And it's really tough for a driver when this starts happening. We all love Daniel Ricciardo. Hopefully, he can turn it around.
Yeah, let's talk about pressure. Let's talk about tough questions to Mark Gallagher. Is he going to keep his seat? And if you were the team leader, if you were Zach Brown, would you be keeping Daniel Ricciardo? And if not, what would you do? How would you move him on?
Well, I think if I was Zach Brown, I wouldn't have let it go this far, because it was clear last year there was already an issue. And actually, you've asked me a blunt question. Someone I know very well who is quite close to Daniel said to me when he made the decision to leave Red Bull that he was cashing out. And that was a very big statement. And what I meant by cashing out is by taking the money and going to Renault, Daniel will have known he was going to a team that did not have the capacity to win Grand Prix, let alone World Championships. So whatever the press release said, you just know that he was taking the money when he went there. And you can't blame him for that, because, if you're offered a really big amount of cash to drive for a factory team, and Cyril Abiteboul, the team boss, was very motivated to get Daniel into the team, and there was no love lost between Cyril, and of course Christian Horner at Red Bull. There was a big opportunity. Daniel grabbed it with both hands, and I mean, let's be clear. Within a year of joining Renault and taking the money, he was announcing that he was not going to be continuing. He was going to be off after his second year. So then he, left and went on to McLaren. So McLaren took on a driver who had already made an incredibly critical decision in his career, which was, I'm not going to stay with the team likely to win a race anytime. I'm not going to stay with Red Bull. I'm going to go with the team that actually, has been, frankly, in transition for as long as anyone can ever. It's been so long, and in transition it should be their middle name. They never actually transition to becoming a winning team. So he had already made that decision. So I would have really questioned that. And then, of course, he's joined a McLaren team which has this superstar young driver, Lando Norris, and the team is very much sort of galvanized around him. And so if it wasn't already Lando Norris's team, it must have become pretty clear to Daniel quite earlier on that it was fast becoming that way. And so I think it's been a slippery slope for a while. The thing for me is that Daniel has it within him to come back. What does it need? It needs, and I'll maybe throw to Alex on this one. One thing I have always passionately believed in is that drivers need the team to be around them, the arm to be around them, to supporting them, giving them everything they need. And that's not to say that McLaren haven't been trying to do that, but clearly there's been something missing. And I think Daniel has to dig deeper and have some serious conversations. I would think it appalling if he and McLaren at this stage of the year are already thinking about, moving on from what is a 3-year contract, and he is contracted for next year. So actually they ought to be doubling down and finding out how can they get a car underneath him that he can have faith in and confidence in. But it's at the moment he almost feels, he almost looks to me like a driver who is just slightly out on a limb and not that confident in himself or in the team around him. And it's demonstrating itself in those significant tenths of seconds. In some sessions, you'll see Daniel 6-7 tenths of a second off Lando. It's shocking.
Yeah. Do you think you should stay, Alex? Stay or go?
This is a really tough thing because like Mark said, we all think, oh, is he cashing out? But if that is actually what's really happened, and Daniel Ricciardo can recognize that, then I think the end is nigh, isn't it? Because how do you turn it around? Because you're just not putting the effort in enough. Yes, you need the team around you, but it's about a driver deciding, no, I'm going to fight for this, and what can I do more to push on? Drivers who tend to complain, oh, I need this, and I need this, and they swap teams and they try and get them. And sometimes they get the arm around them. There are drivers famously, you need that. But I also think that's a bit of an outdated model. I think drivers need to be more complete these days, and they need to work harder because the new generation are coming and they're more complete. And I keep talking about this, what they do on the simulators, what they do just outside of just driving a Formula One car, or focused on just improving themselves as a driver. Not improving themselves as a Formula One driver, but improving themselves as a driver. So you can drive things because, engineers, you got to make a fast car, and you have to learn how to drive a fast car no matter what that car is. And if you can't adapt, then we'll stick another sensor, as Mark said, or stick another driver in, because that's the way you win championships.